Hello and welcome to Coming Home, Survive and Thrive in Homeschooling. I have another episode in my series, Planning for Careers. If your child or young adult is thinking of becoming a chiropractor or interested in natural health, you'll have a special interest in this interview with Dr. Sarah Farrant. As a homeschooling mum herself, she understands the importance of designing your curriculum around your child's needs, giftings, and inclinations. Sarah is a chiropractor who, along with her husband, also a chiropractor, has a clinic in Auckland, New Zealand. Dr. Farrant tells us how and why she became a chiropractor, including asking, how do you define health? The absence of disease, or is it more? She reminds us our body is self-healing, self-regulating, and constantly adapting to our environment. Also, to ask and seek out other ways to deal with our health, as well as medical. The more bows to have in your quiver, so to speak, the better. When it comes to our own health, she points out, we often have a block in spending money on ourselves compared to, say, our car. And here's a question for you to consider. Do you know what the average person's number of medications is in their lifetime? And then add to that, how many over-the-counter medications would that be? The ones you can buy at the chemist or at the supermarket. Sarah will give you these statistics during our interview. And when she does, think of what the cost of these are and consider that prevention is always better than cure. And if you turned that money that you spent on a lot of medications, perhaps more to your well-being, well, that's an investment worth considering. Later on in the interview, she also talks about the 2 books she has written, and she explains how she went from writing from a lifetime of struggle to something that she succeeded in and continues to do. It's inspirational if anyone in your family has reading and writing challenges. I hope you enjoy listening to Dr. Sarah Farrant. Welcome back to you, Dr. Sarah Farrant, and we're going to talk about your doctor title this week. So first of all, thank you so much for once again coming along and giving up of your time and your experience and advice. So what we're going to talk about this week, if that's okay, is chiropractor. You are a chiropractor, so I'd love to hear about why and then how, and then we'll move into advice.
Well, probably if I start with how, that will probably lead to the why. Back in 1972, I was sitting watching the TV with my parents. It was a late breaking news that came across, and we had only just got a TV. We thought we were rich. It was a black and white TV. And we were all sitting there, and out comes this surgeon, and he starts to explain the brain surgery that he'd just performed. And I was sitting as this 5-year-old like, oh, my gosh, like someone can cut the body open and see inside. Like I wanted to, just like when we got the TV, I wanted to find where all the little people lived, right? Just like the body and this brain surgeon can do. I was like, I wanted to see inside the human body. I wanted to know what does that brain look like? Like, where is all of this going? How are we all connected? Anyway, we got up from the couch after this late breaking news had finished to go to the dinner table. And I said to my parents, I kind of announced to the family, like, I'm going to be a brain surgeon. And, as you do with 5-year-olds then, right? My dad kind of pat me on the back like, oh, that's nice, dear, off for dinner. And it wasn't really spoken about again, but I never lost sight of this. I want to be this brain surgeon. And on my dad's side, there were medical doctors, like his cousin, not close to, but his cousin was, a medical doctor, and, his kids, etc. So there was that kind of lineage in the family. And when I got to school, became very clear that obviously my pathway to be this extraordinary brain surgeon was not going to come to fruition, because I was very much called the dunce at school, and I would have been classified as dyslexic, I guess. I was referred to as the dumb one. But I used to go to this lady with this little brown door on the other side of the oval, and every time my left foot, I'm left-handed, would touch the grass, I would beeline for her little brown door, and I would say to myself, I'm going to be a doctor and change people's lives. I'm going to be a doctor and change people's lives, for 12 years of my education at school. So I confirmed to myself and affirmed to the universe that that's indeed what I was going to be. But as I got higher in my education and realized that my reading level was at the level of a 12-year-old, pretty much into my late 20s, and never had read a book in my life, that I was probably not going to go to medical school. Anyway, cut to, I'd finished in the Australian rowing team, living at the Australian Institute of Sport, and then I was invited to go and train at Australian College of Physical Education, which was really easy for me to get through because it was all systems, right? So my mind was very systems orientated. That's what Miss Claire recognized in me, and she helped me learn through systems. So the nerve system was easy, the muscular system, anything like that, it was all easy to understand. So going through phys ed, and I finished second in the year in phys ed, was easy to go through. I left phys ed and didn't go into teaching, but went into training elite athletes. So Melbourne Tigers basketballers, Australian touch football players, world aerobics champions. I coached all of them in strength and conditioning. And my friend said to me, well, why don't you help me open this gym? And I said, oh, okay. And it was the first gym of its kind in Australia in a shopping centre. So I went in and I helped her. Anyway, we needed to get some more people. Another person that was employed knew someone who had just come back from overseas, which happens to be my now husband. And when we were working together, we had a few shifts together at the gym, and he was training another lady, and he was explaining to her, yeah, I've got these challenges with my back, and I had an accident when I was a kid. And she goes, oh, you got to go and see Ken. Ken's my chiropractor. He's amazing. You got to go and see him. And man's like, oh, okay. So anyway, we went and saw this husband and wife couple, and Rand was seeing Ken. And after just the first appointment that we had with Ken, there was something that went off in my head that was just light bulb kind of moments. And anyway, we went to the front desk and I booked an appointment. The only appointment available was with his wife, so I saw his wife. Anyway, and Randall and I kept going consistently throughout, the weeks and the months that went on, that we would go every week to have a chiropractic adjustment, because we realized that this was awesome and this was good for us and was all about the nerve system. Well, we became fast friends with this couple, and they took us out for dinner when they were moving from Victoria to Tasmania with two other couples as well. And while we were sitting there at dinner, I turned to Ken and I asked the questions, and I don't believe in coincidences. I only believe in coincidences. So in this particular instance, I said to Ken, well, if you had the chance to study chiropractic again, where would you go? And he said, oh, well, I would go to Palmer College. And we're like, Palmer? Where's Palmer? And he said, it's in Iowa. And we're like, Iowa? Why would you go there? And he said, because of its philosophy. And we went, philosophy? What do you mean? And he said, it's the reason why we do what we do. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. Didn't think anything of it, went through dinner. Well, the next day I woke up and I thought, I'm intrigued with this Palmer College place. So went out to where I was studying psychology at La Trobe University in Melbourne, because I had got into that graduate diploma program, a 3-year grad dip, after I'd finished phys ed, and I was training the elite athletes. But that's when sports psychology was kind of coming in. That's the vein that I was in at the time. So I was studying psychology. I was pretty much through it. I went back out to the university to look up Palmer College and printed everything out, because in those days, of course, you couldn't just print a page. You had to print the whole of the website, right? So I'm going back into the early mid 1990s, early 1990s. Had a wad of paper, took it out to the quadrangle, sat on the ground and started reading it. And on it, Christine, was this definition of health. Now, when I was going through phys ed and going through psychology, nothing could be defined. Health could not be defined. No one could define it other than having no signs and symptoms, having no pain, being happy, exercising and eating right. That's what people said health was. There's way more than that. So here was this definition of optimal physical, mental, and social well-being, and not necessarily the absence of disease or infirmity. And I was like, that's interesting. And then it talked about the nerve system as the master communicating system of the body. I was like, that's interesting. And then it said that we are self-healing, self-regulating organisms that are constantly adapting to our environment. I was like, wow, this is cool. And then in the top right-hand corner, it said, click here for the Doctor of Chiropractic program. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. And so this 5-year-old that I had from 1972 watching this brain surgeon on TV, and me saying to myself, I'm going to be a doctor and change people's lives. I'm howling at this point, sitting in the quadrangle going, this is it. This is exactly what I'm meant to do. I'm not meant to be that allopathic brain surgeon that opens people up and removes things or cuts things or slices, dices, etc. But I am meant to be that, that doctor, which really means teacher, that doctor that looks at the nerve system from the inside out, and how is that expressing through one's, health, and how are they functioning, etc. So I had this wad of paper, crying my eyes out, got in the car, drove home, walked in the the door, and went to the kitchen where my husband was, whacked the wad of paper on the bench and said, I'm moving to America. You can come with me. We can get divorced, or we can have a long-term relationship, a long-distance relationship, but we all know how they work out. And I didn't think anything, I didn't bat an eyelid. I just was going. And then Randall was kind of like, oh, what? So I'd enrolled, and I also enrolled him. And because I knew that he takes a little bit longer to make decisions, but I thought, no, he's not going to leave me. We are still going to be together. We are as thick as thieves, and we are going to go on this journey together. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. So we sold everything we owned. We just bought a new house. So we like a year before that, we sold that, sold cars, sold everything down to a couple of boxes and a mattress. Don't know why we kept the mattress, but we did. A couple of boxes which we had at some friend's place, and we took over to the States to study, and we never looked back. Now, interestingly, not one, actually, it was a number of people said, how are you guys going to afford to live there and study? And I said, I don't know. I'm just trusting that this is where I'm meant to go, and the doors are opening and there's flow. So that's where I'm going. And as it turned out, Randall and I both received the largest chiropractic endowed scholarship in the world, and it was the first time it was ever given to a married couple in the same year. So that pretty much paid for all of us, one of us to go through. We ended up working 5 different jobs between us, bought a house, rented half of it. Like, you manage it, right? You just make it work. So we really trusted in that process, and since then I have not looked back. So the attraction for me was this 5-year-old that was like, I'm going to be a doctor and change people's lives. And then seeing that chiropractors were doctors and that they work with the nerve system. And that's exactly what I wanted to do. And I never knew that chiropractors were doctors. I never knew that dentists were doctors. I didn't know that there were naturopathic doctors. I only knew that there were medical doctors. So when I saw that was another aha moment for me, like, oh, there are lots of people that are doctors that do things differently. So for me, it was a life-changing moment, and I haven't, turned back since that. That's been the lane that I've stayed in. I brought our psychology understanding and my education understanding into that profession, and also general science in the background. But I definitely would not call myself a scientist. I'd be more of a philosopher, why we do what we do, and asking those questions to help people see that there are other ways to look at health.
Yeah. I was going to ask assume actually that the studies in psychology that you did, and the nutrition and the sports training, that could only have enhanced your ability to work in chiropractic would be a good position.
Yeah, right. And it certainly has, and I just think that's our experiences, all those bows in our quiver help to help us help other people in their life too, not only our own. Oh, and also too, when I got to Palmer College, this probably rounded out well with that 5-year-old wanting to open people up and look inside. But myself and my husband, one of our 5 jobs was working in the cadaver lab at Chiropractic College. They had this massive cadaver lab, and I would work in it because I wanted to look inside the body. I wanted to see where that nerve system was going. I wanted to see everything. So for 2.5 years, I worked there until I was towards the end of chiropractic, when I was then pregnant, and then obviously not, in those cadaver labs anymore. With pregnancy and, just what they embalm bodies in and stuff like that. So for me, it was fantastic because I got to see, inside. It's this is just this genius that is, and it helps me to feel so much more confident in what I teach people, like that we have this extraordinary machine. It was not even a machine, but this system inside of us, and yet we spend more money on our car. Like we're way more intricately designed than our car, right? But people are, for some reason we have this, this block when it comes to spending money. And you know what, Christine? The average person has, I might be going off to Granny's house here, so please tell me if you need to reel me in. The average person in their lifetime has 14,000 medications. 14,000. I don't know if we shared this on the last interview we did, but and that's not including over-the-counter medications. So over-the-counter medications, when we add that, gets to 40,000. One person, 40,000 medications. Now, if the average medication is only $5, and we know that that's not the case, then you multiply that. You've got a massive mortgage repayment, or you've got a massive down deposit, or you've got a massive amount to buy a business. It doesn't, whatever it is, you've got a massive amount. So when I explain that to people, because people say, I've got to go to chiropractic for the rest of my life. And I'm like, well, yes. Well, why wouldn't you? You don't eat broccoli once, right? You if it's good for you, why wouldn't you want that? And you are self-healing, self-regulating, self-adapting to your life, and you are constantly moving and changing and evolving in your body, and your nerve system is the master communicating system of that. Then why wouldn't you want to make sure that the messages going to it are always clear and free of interference? That just makes sense. It's a very simple message, but very hard for people to comprehend. So wouldn't you be better off putting your money there that is investing in yourself, that is giving you life, rather than something that's taking your life?
Yes, because it's often done in hindsight, isn't it? Most people come into the clinic and it's because they've had an accident, or they've lifted something, or the amount of claims we will get because people have been working out at the gym and done themselves a mischief. But that seems to be their trigger point to come. Yes,
we are in our practice. We don't do ACC. We teach about self-responsibility, that every single thing that is occurring in your life is because you had a hand in it. So the more that you reach for a hand out, the less that you're going to take the hand in and look at yourself. So we're all about self-responsibility, and a cash-only practice, and we sit at that end where people are coming in on that regular occurrence, because not necessarily because of something happening in their life, but because of everything that's right, not because of everything that's wrong, if that makes sense.
Sure. Okay, that's real. I didn't realize that about your practice. Interesting. Okay. Okay, so how many years were you in Iowa? That's not how you say it, is it? Iowa.
Iowa. That stands for I ought to go the other way around. Lots of people bypass Iowa. We were there for 5 years, 4 years, 4 years. 2002, 3, 4. Yeah, maybe 4.5 years.
Right. And so by the time you finished there, you had qualified as a chiropractor?
Yeah, we qualified as chiropractors. So we did. At Palmer College, you can do what's called an accelerated program. And the accelerated program is done over 3 1/3 years. So you're doing like a 6-year course in 3.5 years. It's intense. But we were older and we wanted to do it that way because we wanted to get out into the workforce as fast as we could. So when you finish a semester, you don't have holidays. You just one day off and then you bang into the next one. So it's your learning capacity is fast. Your week is full, but you're immersed, right? And so that's what we loved about it too. Like, you're immersed in that learning over that time frame. Most colleges aren't like that. Most around the world are on that 5-year program. Some maybe 5 and a bit, maybe. And we had also had prerequisites and credits because of our prior education. So we got some. But interestingly enough, Christine, they said that we had to do English at community college because it wasn't on our transcripts. We're like, English? We come from an English-speaking country. So we had to go and take a speaking class and an English class. It was very odd, but that's the American system for you. It's an odd system. But anyway.
Okay, but it clearly your degree enabled you to practice chiropractic pretty much anywhere in the world?
No. So it's a doctor program. It's not a degree program. It's a doctor program, or doctorate, and you have to get qualified. So you still have to sit board exams. So there's a board exam, a jurisprudence exam, and a practical. So depending on where you are in the world, there's different criteria to do that, but most places require you to do a board exam.
Okay, all right. So you finished your doctorate, I should say. Sorry, not degree.
Oh, that's right.
And did you come to New Zealand at that stage and set up practice? Tell us what happened then.
Yeah, so we finished there and we went to Australia. We're in practice there, and then we moved to New Zealand in 2008 and set up practice from scratch there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's your why, your how, and what you're doing now. Is there anything else you want to add to what you're doing, your journey up until, let's say, today, before we move into advice for students?
No, we're pretty much in private practice, and I'd written the books, The Vital Truth and The Health Illusion, and that put me on stages so I'd speak around the world. Still writing our articles for our blog articles for our website, and home educating kids. So it was a busy time.
It was a very full life.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've just written down about you wrote a book which was successful, and I want to return to that because I've got some questions around that too. But
Sure.
But for now, can we move into, please, students who would like to veer towards, they've got an interest in chiropractic.
Mm-hmm.
So for homeschooling students who, as we've discussed before, have this unique ability, if you like, to be able to curate what they want to do at home, do you see any possibilities of being able to complete prerequisites for chiropractic colleges whilst they're still homeschooling to lessen the time in training?
That's a really good question. So there are prerequisites for chiropractic. So NCEA is level 3. And I'm just talking, I'll go there and then look at what bridging stuff is. So NCEA level 3 with a rank score of 200 or equivalent is what they say will get you into the college. So as home educator kids, as you just said, that we can curate where they go. So ESA publications, which I think I was speaking with you last time, they have all of those NCEA level books. So if you're meant to be by age, meant to be in year 12, but you're doing year 11, but you're doing year 13 stuff, there's no reason why you can't get that in advance and then do a bridging to get you to college. The good thing about the college now is that prerequisite year that they do, where you go and do at I think it's Auckland University of Technology, Auckland Uni, and Otago, where you can do that prerequisite year where they focus on anatomy and physiology, physics and chemistry, etc. You can do that prerequisite year now at the college. So they can have you contained in all of those 5 years, which is which is good because you get more of the philosophical understanding from the chiropractic perspective. If you go to those other universities like AUT Auckland and Otago, then you're sitting with everyone else, right? You're sitting with the nurses, the physios, the osteos, the medical doctors, you know, eventually when they branch off to wherever they are. So there's those prerequisites. So you can obviously do that in advance at home, and the ESA publications can help with that. And then there's those bridging courses to get into chiropractic college. But now they contain that at the college themselves. So the course pathway itself is a 5-year program. The course itself cannot be reduced. You can't do it in a faster amount of time. And the reason why is that the New Zealand College of Chiropractic is one of the most respected colleges around the world. I think it's in the top 3, top 4, if not top 5 at least. But it also has the world's highest criteria for graduation, clinical criteria for graduation. So in other words, when you know, let's say, for instance, like, and these are, I don't know what the numbers are, but I'm just saying, like, let's say around the world that you have to see, you know, 5 people to graduate out of clinic, you know, which you don't, you have to see more than that. You know, the New Zealand Chiropractic College would have you seeing 50, you know, like, so it's very, very tight in terms of its criteria. And I respect that too, because when someone is coming out of the college, you want to make sure, the one, that they know all about the nerve system and its, you know, its relevance to health. But also you want to know that they can adjust. So there's 2 things. You want to know that they have the knowledge of where to adjust, but they also know how to adjust. So head, hearts, and hands kind of thing, which is what we had at Palmer College, head, heart, hands. So if there is a mum and a child listening to this and they do want to study chiropractic, then the college will move mountains to help them be able to get in. But they need them to do that, you know, I guess that first bridge year, because they don't want to deliver something to them that they're not going to be able to achieve. And I kind of understand that. So there's standards that need to be met. This is, I mean, we have more anatomy and physiology than a medical doctor, more neurology. Like, so we are ingrained in it, but people still think that we're just back doctors, you know, like we're not, you know. So making sure that they understand and know and have the knowledge of where to adjust, but also how to adjust, is vitally important to the success of the profession when we're graduating these students coming out into our communities. So it's a 5-year minimum. But contact the college. I think I had shared with you, contact Vikki Kelly. Do you want me to give her number and name now, or?
Yeah, sure. And I will put it in description, but yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. Please. So Vikki Kelly, who is would be the best person for any home educated person to contact at the college. And her number is 027 431 7607.
Okay.
And she was quite happy for me to give that to you and share it on here. So I've spoken to her about that maybe there might be some, you know, young kids listening to this that want to have that as their pathway. But also the college does awesome open days. So going to one of those would be great. And let's not forget that this is a private college. So you're not going into a government run system, even though there are tertiary requirements and government, it kind of wraps around the box, I guess, but you're not like at an Auckland uni or an AUT or Otago or any of those, Canterbury or any of those ones where it is very much the government curriculum of what you are learning. This is a private institution and set up for that purpose to make sure that we can, stay out of that and have more control over the philosophy of chiropractic and why we do what we do.
All right, thank you. That's really helpful. I'll put their website in the description area as well. That's very generous of Kelly to
Vikki.
Vikki, yeah.
I know, sometimes I get confused too.
To give out to her contact details there. So, all right then. So we've established that there really is no shortcutting. Good to know. So backtrack into the homeschooling years, let's say over their teens. And it's very clear, like yourself, that you were headed towards caring for people in some way. What would you advise now, looking back over the years, to make sure they read certain books, to concentrate on elements of science or biology or whatever, and what else that people might say, well, what's that got to do with being a chiropractor? But that's not the point. What do you advise for high school study at home?
Study the systems of the body, physics, chem, biology, if that's the kind of vein you're thinking of, because they're all the subjects you're going to need. You know, you need to have chemistry, you need to have physics, you need to have anatomy and physiology, you need to have the nerve system, and so any opportunity you can get to actually study those, then yes, I would encourage home educated kids to start looking at that now.
What about those extra things? Like I'm thinking in Palmer, you were sent off to speaking classes.
Oh, that actually wasn't Palmer College. That was community. That was community college. Pardon me. So when we sent all of our transcripts from our two prior degrees, my husband has a degree in environmental science as well. So, a master's in environmental science. And so when we, it's a master's? No, grad dip, sorry. When we sent our transcripts across, they read them, and then there were certain subjects that we had to do, like a physics and a chemistry class at community college, but we also had to do those English papers at community college before going into Palmer. So Palmer didn't have that facility like the New Zealand College does to actually have those coming into the college to learn on campus. You had to go to the local community college to do those.
What about the psychology aspect of it?
Beg your pardon?
Psychology.
What prompted me to study it?
No. What would that be helpful for somebody who's looking to chiropractic to be prepping themselves during the high school years to understand how people tick?
Yeah, I think there's probably people that you can follow that might give you more of that than necessarily psychology, when you look at it, is all about stats and rats, right? If you really want to look at the understanding of the human mind, then look at social work, you know, because they tend to look more at how people are thinking, and, you know, so I would probably look at, there was always going through psychology, the social workers and the psychologists, you know, they were always like, you know, kind of at each other. Like, I think every profession has their angst profession. But when I was doing psychology, it was all about stats and rats. And I used to chat with the social work people. I'm like, I should have been doing what you're doing, because that sounds way more interesting. So I would say, you know, I think there's some aspects of psychology which is good, but I think you can probably pick up books or find people that might be more adept at, you know, you might listen to some podcasts or something like that, and then maybe look at the social work and what they're teaching there. But definitely, if there's an opportunity for them to learn the initial stages of psychology, you know, what is psychology and why is it important and relevant in life, I think that's good. But I think there's nothing better than your own journey through life to become the specialist in psychology, right? So it's all about how you've journeyed through your own life, and therefore you can extract those experiences to help others be guided in theirs, than necessarily from book work, you know. So I think, and to the credit of home educated families and kids, I think they've got a lot of that. Like, they've got a lot of that conversation and asking questions and inquisitive mind. And if they're inquisitive enough, then they ask the question, find the answer, and then see how that's relevant in their life. And I think that's, you know, nothing beats that. There's no book that will beat that or do better than that. So, but in terms of chiropractic itself, no, you don't need a psychology background for chiropractic, but when you get into practice and you're dealing with people, then the more life experiences you have, the easier it is to help guide people. If that makes sense.
Yes, it does actually, and I think you're right, and that many homeschoolers are already quite adept at being able to get on with people, to read people, and make good instinctive judgment sometimes. Okay, well, what about learning good basic business skills? Because unless you're actually going to be an employee as a chiropractor, so talk to that one then, please. What do you recommend?
Definitely business, study business. I think when you go through any professional program, chiropractic is not something that you can learn on the street. Medicine is not something you can learn on the street, nor is physio or nursing. So there are those particular professions that require, or law even though you could probably go and work your way up in law. But at the end of the day, you'd need a piece of paper for those professions. So you don't necessarily get business when you're doing them. However, in chiropractic, we did. The profession recognises the importance of making sure you do business. So your final year of education is very much in the business vein. You have to do a business plan. You have to put it together. You have to do crunch numbers. You have to do all of that to make sure that you are at least going to go out and survive and then thrive, in that first year and beyond. So business, that's important. We've fumbled our way around at the beginning, but because I'm a systems orientated person, I was very much able to build the structure of the business. So anytime that they can get anything about business, then I would encourage. And I'm not talking people on social media, on Instagram, come and learn this course. I'm thinking about what is if they can get conversations with accountants and just learn about looking at a ledger, and, more comes in, less comes out, simple messages, which again, as home educated kids, I would imagine a lot of them would, I would like to think a lot of them would already have the grounding of that common sense approach to life and getting ahead. Not everyone does. I get that. But we certainly taught our kids that. They never got pocket money, nothing. We had 5 functional house activities and everybody had to participate, and we would change that around, kind of weekly. So teaching them a healthy relationship with money and therefore with business was important to us. And for those kids wanting to look at chiropractic and parents looking at chiropractic for their kids, then yes, doing some kind of business course out there would be worth investing in. In saying that, I don't necessarily have a course or books off the top of my head that would be great to read, other than maybe like a Rich Dad Poor Dad or something like that, to give them ins and outs of money and knowing about money and how it works. And you could always ring the college and say, do you have a business arm to the chiropractic program? And if they do, and then just say, what books do you recommend for those subjects? And you can get them, in advance and just read along. Not read along, obviously, the course, but read through, get familiar with, okay, this is leading to this question. Now I've got that question. And then it might open the Pandora's box of business.
Yes, because I'm thinking it's not just going to be your chiropractic clinic that's going to be bringing in your income. Because it wouldn't take very long before you reach a natural ceiling on what you're capable of bringing in, because you can only do what the clinic hours are in the day. So would it not be a wise idea to explore how you can leverage other knowledge that you've got, or leverage the money that you're earning in order to create perhaps a more passive income? Do you have any comments along that line, Sarah?
Well, I think the journey when you first start out is just about holding on, right, and surviving in those first couple of years as a new grad and not sure, etc. And then you start to, learn the ropes. You learn how to talk to people. You start to look at your own stats and where your weaknesses are, and then you start to work on those. And then it comes to a point, like you said, there's only so much time in the day, and because you're working hours for time, then you're not leveraging. So the importance of business then is to be able to leverage yourself. And so working out how you can leverage that. So then you get associates in. You might want to expand your business model depending on what you do. We don't, I guess, mix is a term that's used in chiropractic. We don't. We're very much just chiropractors in our practice, whereas other practices might have a massage person and a physio and a acupuncture, and that's fine, and that's their model, and that's great, and that's also leveraging your time, as well as putting in, maybe a couple of other chiropractors. So there are those big practices around the country that do that. They're not the norm, I would say. I think the norm is probably Mapa Kettle in their practice, or maybe it's an individual mum or dad. When I say mum or dad, sorry, male or female in their practice, and maybe there's one other person, or maybe it's just them and their associate. And you can still earn a great living out of just being a single person in a practice with one CA, or in practice on your own. Depending on what your systems are and how you can work that. So there's lots of different chiropractic models, and no doubt that'll be shared when the child would get to chiropractic college.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Have you had any other thoughts regarding advice for young ones looking to chiropractic?
Just do it. Because it's the average chiropractor in practice is 40 years. So that's how much we love doing what we do. So if there's a kid out there that is looking for passion, looking for purpose, and looking for prosperity, chiropractic's got all three. And it's such an awesome group of people to be around, and there's a solidarity within the profession because of how many times we've tried to get, people have tried to shut the whole profession down. So and just like when you put a rock on top of a new seedling, when you put it in the soil, that seed is always going to find its way to the light. And that's what chiropractic, as a profession, we do it, where we come together, we rally, and we fight for our principles. And there are not many professions out there that are well organized like that, and we certainly are great at claiming that space. And a lot of other professions look at us and go, wow, how do you guys do it? And that's because over the years we've been so marginalized and so sit out of the system. And not always, because there are those chiropractors that are medi-practors and alternative practice, and then there's those that are purely just in the chiropractic environment. So, but all of us are able to come together when the time needs in order to rally ourselves to protect the rights of our clients, our practice members, as we call them, and ourselves and the profession.
So you form your own support group, really, not quite your own union, but your own support.
Okay, yeah, you could say that. That, definitely. And we do have that. Obviously, we have the New Zealand Chiropractic Association, which new grads, can be a part of or not be a part of. They don't have to be a part of it, but they can be a part of it. And that's another, collection, a body of people where, more friendships are made and more connections are had. So,
what if you wanted to be a bit like a nomadic chiropractor? Can you take your being a doctor of chiropractic and say, well, I'm going to go and live in the UK for a year, and then I'm going to go to France, or I think I'll pop over to the States. Can you take that? Does each country have their own expectations?
Yeah. So yes and no to that answer. So if you wanted to go to the States, you would have to sit all of their level 4. They have 4 boards, plus some modules. Physiotherapy, I think, are 2 modules that you have to do as well. So you have, you've got potentially 6 exams that you have to sit in order to get there. Now, if you've sat the New Zealand boards or the Australian boards, then you might get accreditation for the level 2 of those, or even 3 of those, but you then have to sit the 4th board. So once you sit those boards, then you have to get someone to sponsor you to come over and work in that country, because they've got a massive amount of chiropractors that are being graduated, so they have no need necessarily to recruit from outside their country. And of course, you can't just go and work in that country. You need a working visa, etc. So the US is a little bit more challenging. Australia's easy. We have reciprocal rights with our registration. So if I wanted to go back home to Australia, then I would just transfer my registration over, pay the money, and I'm registered. And same with an Australian coming over here, pay the money, they're registered. Nothing additional that needs to be done. If you're going to the UK, they have a brutal exam that you would need to sit, and practical, and an interview. And you can, if you have, a visa to go, or you have someone who sponsored you, or you have a passport ability to be able to go and work there, then yes, you can go and do that. In countries like Spain, Italy, even France, I think. I'm a bit rusty on this, Christine, because it hasn't been in our pipeline. Some of those European countries are unregulated, which means that you don't have to be registered in order to work there. So you can, not registered. You need to be a registered chiropractor, but you don't have to sit an exam in order to go in and work there. So there's a little bit more flexibility. And I know Italy is still like that. I beg your pardon, I don't think Spain is like that. France may still be like that. Germany's not like that. Or is Germany like that? I don't know. But there are those avenues around Europe where you have to be a qualified chiropractor, but you don't necessarily have to sit the exam because of its lack of regulation that is there.
Okay.
So I still believe that is true today. So there's differences, around the world, but certainly there's no reason why you can't do that.
Mm. Okay, thank you. Can you think of anything else about chiropractic before we move on?
No, I think it's just always, if a mum or dad is listening to this, it's about, helping people to reach optimal levels of health in their life. And the essence of that, or the seat of that, the overarching governing system of that, is the nerve system. It's the master communicating system of the body. So, given that we're self-healing, self-regulating, and self-maintaining and self-regenerating organisms are constantly adapting to our environment, then you would have a son or a daughter that could give you chiropractic for life. So why not encourage them to go and be a chiropractor? But definitely, I would encourage people to contact Vikki and go to an open day. Definitely.
Cool. Great full stop in there. Thank you, Sarah. Now, your book, please tell me what the title is and why you wrote it.
There's 2 books. The first one is called The Vital Truth, and that came out in 2006. And I wrote, 2007, I think. I wrote that book purely to help myself, prove to myself, I should say. I wrote it purely to prove to myself that I could write, and that I could cohesively put sentences together, and that I wasn't dyslexic, as most people call us. And at 27, Christine, I actually had a testing done before I went to Palmer College, and that's when they said that I had semantic aphasia. So, sentence, couldn't remember stuff. Basically, I would read and couldn't remember stuff, and then I had a reading age of 12. And it was then that I hadn't read anything. I read summary stuff, to get through my exams, but I hadn't read a book. And the first book I actually read, I wrote down every single character in that book. And in that book, if Johnny was related to Mary, I'd be like, oh, who's Mary? I can't remember Mary. So I go back and flick through my notes, go, okay, where's Mary? Okay, Mary was the auntie. Okay, now I know. Okay, now I've got the picture. So I read every single word really, really slowly so I could attempt to remember this. Anyway, when it came to writing the book, I really didn't want to write the book, but then I did write the book because I kept, getting the push to write the book. And I wrote it, really to help myself get over it. And it ended up becoming, a global seller, sold in 34 countries, and winning non-fiction writer of the year. So it was obviously meant to be written. And the full title of it is The Vital Truth: Accessing the Possibilities of Unlimited Health. And it really is that journey of, what is health. There's different stories in there. There's about 13 or 14 different family type stories, kids and adults. And it looks at all that mechanistic understanding of health, and then that vitalistic understanding of health, that we have everything inside of us, or are we actually just cogs in a wheel and we're just put together like a machine? So it kind of explores that, which is good. And then in 2014, I wrote the second book, which is called The Health Illusion: Is It Killing You? And and that's been just as successful, which is great. And I wrote that just because I had a whole lot of continued information in me. And in 2010, so 4 years prior to that book coming out, I made it my mission. I wrote out a mission statement to organize the world's health information into bite-sized pieces so people could understand it. So again, bringing in my systems mind and organized that into 3 different health approaches, really. So the allopathic health approach, where I sat from 0 into my mid-teens, and then the alternative approach, where I sat until my mid-20s, and then the little known but fast recognized one, which is called the alternate. So where there used to only be 2 health approaches, I then identified and created that third, of which chiropractic would sit in. And and that's been great. So now I've been traveling around the country doing presentations, and we'll continue that into next year, 2024.
I will go looking for those books. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think you proved to yourself that you don't have any issues with books and writing and reading. Well done, you.
Yeah, and interesting now, you're always driven by your voids, right? So my void was that I was always telling myself this story that I couldn't read and I couldn't write and I couldn't comprehend. And that's because 12 years of school told me that that's what I was, and yet it was Miss Claire that was my savior, because that's what I used to say to myself: I'm going to be a doctor and change people's lives, realizing that I had that systems mind. So And when I wrote the books, I wrote them from a systems mind, as in I wrote everything. I did Post-it notes, okay, and then I organized it into chapter headings. What would I call that chapter? That goes with that, that goes with that, that goes with that. And then I would just pick up a Post-it note and I would write, okay, today, just write 500 words on this. And so that's how I started to piece the book together. But interestingly, when I said to my husband, okay, I'm going to write this book, like it's just driving me insane, he said, great. And I said, can you just drop me at the beach? Could you have the kids? And I'll just take my pen and paper and I'll go and I'll sit and I'll write. Well, interestingly, Christine, I started writing and all of this stuff was coming up for me, which was, you can't write. Look how bad that writing is. Look, it's all smudged. And, because I was getting the knuckles at school for smudging my writing because I was a left-hander, like I just had an ink. Ink was not good for a left-hander, right? You just smudge it. So I would go to the junior headmistress and she would give me the knuckles, bad work, but do better, la, 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 la. So I was, anytime writing was just, So I was crying at this stage, and I'm, an adult in my 30s, crying my eyes out at the beach, just going, I don't want to do this. I can't do this. And then I'd hear my dad say, actually 3/4 of that word can't actually says can, but what you're meaning is that you won't. And I was like, okay, I won't do that. I'm not going to. And then when Randall picked me up, I said, okay, the only way that I think that I can write this book is that if I have a laptop. He said, great. We'll go get a laptop right now. I was like, oh, no, then I'm going to write the book. Anyway, we got a laptop. I came home, sat upstairs in my study and started writing. And I did let out an expletive and I just said, right, what do you want me to say? And then I attuned myself, and then I just started writing and didn't stop for well over an hour and a half. And then when I came out of that, like kind of focused state, I had about 3,000 words already written. And then I reread it and I'm like, wow, did I actually write that? And then I was quite amazed. And I was like, okay, and that started the journey. of writing. And I could write on the laptop because there was no smudging. There was no, ink mess. I wasn't looking at my handwriting and triggering an emotional thought. I was just writing. So I did that, and then I haven't looked back. And so, like I said, now I'm a prolific writer, writing all of our articles. And I don't write for other people. I don't want to do that. I just write for ourselves and the clients that we have through the vital-wellbeing.com. People can go there and look at the articles or the books or anything like that. So
you're amazing, Sarah. And the thing is that you always were. It's just that right from the time when you were a child, people were speaking these untruths into your life, and we absorbed that. And for all of those years, and I just think it's tragic for so many people, we just continue to believe those things, but they can be undone. And I'm just sitting here listening to you and going, wow, you undid all of that, because I guess you just kept on coming up to go, is this the truth? No, it's not the truth. I can do this. I can do this.
Mm-hmm. And interesting too, I always come from that position of perfection, and not that I'm perfectionist. I guess my kids and my husband will probably say that I am, and to a degree, yes, I am. But in terms of everything that has occurred in my life, the experience that I've had has all been perfect. There's not one thing that I'm not grateful for, because if I didn't have that, and I didn't meet Miss Claire, and she didn't teach me about my systems mind, then I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't have organized that world's health information into bite-sized pieces so people can understand it. People wouldn't be getting those ahas when they listen to me at a presentation, because I wouldn't have any of that. So for me, I'm grateful. I'm deeply grateful for all of those events that have occurred in my life. And if I map, and I did this a while ago after our second child was born, and I went to our front room and I mapped my life to that date. So that's like 19 years ago. But I mapped everything. What were the turning points? What were the key decisions that I made that brought me to this place where I was at that time 19 years ago? And it was just awesome just to see that path. If that hadn't, I wouldn't have got there. And if I didn't stop that or have an argument with Reinhold Barchi, the head of the Australian rowing team at the time, then I wouldn't have gone here. So it was just, and that's where chiropractic fits in so nicely with my life, because it comes from that place of perfection. If we look at the definition of health, and then health means wholeness. By root definition, it means wholeness. And so in order for something to be whole, you have to have two halves. You have to have the positive and the negative. So we're not going to get to where we are by avoiding the negative. We're not going to get to where we are by avoiding the positive. We need both in order to express ourselves. So for me, looking at my life, I've looked at those, what would be perceived as a negative, as the positive. I've looked at the positive in all of those situations so that I can come to that conclusion of just be grateful for what and how my life has turned out to date.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, I've so enjoyed listening to you, Sarah. It's it's my own private little motivational pep talk. I hope that has been helpful for aspiring chiropractors out there in the homeschool community, an encouragement to continue to invest in your own health, whether or not you include chiropractic care for your family, and of course, an inspiration with the story of Sarah's writing of her books. You heard me say Sarah homeschooled her children. Yes, I have recorded an interview with her on her experience. That interview will be coming up soon. There are more preparing for careers interviews to help with homeschooling planning and inspiration. There's a link to that playlist on the screen now, and it's a playlist I will continue adding to.